One. We're live. Hey guys, how are you? Giving all of our fine members a chance to join in and log in here because we've got this chat bar where you can ask the great Dave Spector some questions, make suggestions, thoughts, comments, considerations. We're always kind to each other here. We don't have any vitriol or acerbic statements. We don't need that. But Dave and I are just going to chat here. We're going to start at 7 p.m. Okay. So Dave, anyway, we'll go over your history, how you started. You remember that interview we did a few years ago?
Yeah. I use that all the time. Send it to people who are interested in training with me and friends, and it was done really well, Mike. I
appreciate that, man. Because you know what? That's something that will always be out there. It's almost something you leave behind. You know what Frank Zane told me? He said, "Mike, I'm glad I took a lot of photos because that's all I have to prove I was who I was." And when with your doings, you help legions of people. That's what you do. You help people rise. You help them along. John Defendis checked in. He said, "Dave Spector with 3." I think that's 4 exclamation points. No, he got 3.
Well, John and I go back a long time, and we're very close friends, and we went to the same high school together.
Dave. John has promised that he will linger and he'll pepper us with some statements, questions, and stories. But for now, let's just get what we're going to do here straight.
Okay.
So we'll just go over your history. I want to talk about wrestling. You were a great wrestler. Bodybuilding. You injured yourself. Business. And plus, you're a little more cerebral than a lot of trainers. You're scientifically based. Some of the things we've talked about in the past. I think some people, like what I wrote for an announcement here tonight, we could touch upon these things. Dave is going to, let's see here. Let me find this. Actually, Dr. Aaron Witten suggested some topics we could bring up, and he's a really high-level trainer. Maybe we could talk about proper amounts and type. And this is for people over 50. This is our demographic. Yeah, this is a longevity business, aging without getting old. Dave will apprise us of proper amounts and types of cardio, the best markers for cardiovascular fitness, potential positive and negative impacts of weight training, running. Is it a good option for those over 50? Best ways to monitor progress. All the stuff you do, but I know you send out people for clinical testing and stuff like that. And now you yourself being a top, world level athlete in the endeavor of rowing, you look at VO2 max and things like that for excellence in performance. And, there are people, I don't tend to speak down to people. I expect them to maybe rise. This in perfecting your physicality. You got to do everything that's necessary, right?
Yep, for sure.
We'll do that. We've got like 3 minutes. John Defendis just said, Dave's the greatest, a premier world-class athlete. But John, I just said last night that you were the greatest. How am I gonna apportion all of these accolades to people? I don't know.
Well, one thing I say about John, we competed against each other once, and he beat me, that sucker.
Oh, did he really?
Yes, he did.
Well, you must have caught him. He must have been well on because he said his first 9 shows. Because you have to have tenacity in excelling in all the arenas you've excelled in. You're going to get knocked down. And, John didn't win a show until he lost his first 9, I guess,
Yeah. Well, my first show was really interesting, if you want to hear it. It was, are we on yet or not?
Yeah, no, Dave, save it. I'm going to introduce you in about 2 minutes. Well, we're on right now so people can join. They can see us talking, but it doesn't matter. It's laid back. John says that you helped him beat him. You helped him to beat you.
Yeah, I took John to his first arm workout he ever did. I think he crawled out of the gym doing arms. I took him to this place called Olympic Health Club where I'm like I'm 3 or 4 years older than John, I think. And John was up and coming then, he was young, so I took him to the gym with me one day, and we both went to the same high school, and his brother was a wrestler.
Yeah, very good.
Wrestler.
Yeah.
Tony, yeah. But Tony was a little older than me. So and I took John to the gym once, and also I took him to, we did legs once with John Booz years ago, too.
Oh, I should have had you and John Booz on tonight together.
That would have been great.
We could listen. The great thing about America is we can do anything we want. We could do it next time.
That'd be great. That'd be
Oh,
great.
yeah.
Yeah, because me, him, and Al used to train together. In John's basement. That was like one of the best times in my life doing that.
Well, Dave, listen, you're going to do most of the talking. We're going on in a minute, but we'll talk about Al Order because,
Yep.
multi-Olympic gold medal winner. And, training around people like that, you've got to rise. You can impress upon people that you have to have really good people around you to rise. And John Defendis will attest, our good friend Lance Stranahan, he's down in, actually, he's close to Boca. You're in Boca. I think he's West Palm.
He's in West Palm. I should get together with him. I really
Well, great guy. One of my good friends. John always said that one thing about Lance didn't want to recruit any help when he was training. And I was the same way. I'm not dissing him. And because of that, he would go against John's guys, and he just didn't have that added touch. He wasn't cut enough or whatever it was. And now he looks back and says, you know what? I would have recruited help. I would have gotten people who were ahead of me to help me. And, when you're young, you don't always think that way. But let me introduce you, everybody. Thank you. We've already got a good number of people joining in. I've got a good friend and one of the mainstays in particularly 70s bodybuilding, encroaching into the 80s a little bit. And one of the guys I used to read about in the magazine when I was younger. Dave Spector maybe has a decade on me, but let me tell you, that's just John Booz is here. He's actually here. We said his name.
All right, John.
Oh, don't worry, John. We'll work you in here. John Defendis and John Booz. John squared. But Dave was one of the guys back. He was in contention for the Mr. America. He won some big regional shows. He was also a fantastic, not just a bodybuilder, but he was an all-around athlete, a very, very fine wrestler in high school and college.
Yeah.
Both.
Yep.
And he segued into the business world, became a very successful trainer, which he is to this day. He's down in Boca now. And he's a little different in that he's a lot more clinical than a lot of trainers. Doesn't mean he's better or worse. He's just different. So we can get a little more deeper into it for people who want to get down to the bare bones and find out what they really have to do to be their best. And most interesting thing here now, we attract a lot of people who are interested in longevity and being their best. Like Jack LaLanne, feeling like a kid until the day you die, maybe. And John, Dave right now is vying for the world championship in indoor rowing at age 65. And if you see him, it's not just about how you look, but, he's still like a rock. He's maintained his physicality. He doesn't succumb or acquiesce to the sands of time or what society says, you're this age, so you're supposed to be all bent down and broken and using a walker. A guy like this that'll never happen. A guy like Dave and John Defendis and John Booz and all the other fine legendary figures we have on this podcast. The only way I would ever expect them to see them relent to the pressures and the strains and the difficulties around them is if they either become quadriplegic or have their head cut off. Otherwise, they're always going to be dynamic and leading by example. John Defendis, Booz and Dave are master trainers, the best. Hi, Manuel, how are you? John Booz and Dave took me through an early leg workout and introduced me to real leg training intensity. And John Defendis, your legs just stopped hurting yesterday from that, I think, right? Even though it was 40 years ago.
It was a long time ago.
Dave, thanks. I know you're really busy down there. Thank you for joining me here.
No, it's my pleasure. And I'm just going to say a couple of things right now. I mean, as we age, when I was young and like in my 30s and I was training people used to come in who were 60 and above and say, listen, I can never look like you and I can never be in the shape you're in and this and that because I'm 60 years old and you're 30, But now that I'm this age, when people come in and they're the same age as me and they're not in condition, I say to them, there's always you can always do better than what you're doing, number one. And number two is, I get people all the time and I'm in my 60s now. They look at me and they say, maybe I can do this. I can get in shape because when I'm 30 and somebody's 60, it's like a whole different situation. They're saying, well, this guy's 30 years old and I'm 60. He probably knows what he's talking about. But now it's a total different story because when they come in and see me and I'm 65 years old, and they say, hey, man, this guy's in great shape because I've been working out all my life. It makes it that much easier for them because they see somebody their age, and they say, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can get in shape, and then it tends to be a little bit easier for them because they're dealing with somebody that's close to their age instead of a very young trainer, and I think that's a big point. Same thing with John and Defendus and John Booz, because we are older, we're experienced and it's not just the education of schooling, it's the education of training when you're from your 12, 13 years old for sports, and then for bodybuilding, and learning that, and then taking the education and using what you've learned together. I mean, somebody could be have a doctorate in exercise science or exercise physiology. They might be very knowledgeable, but sometimes those people aren't that knowledgeable of taking care of people, because they're educated, but to take care of people is a whole different story. So now you have to not just be knowledgeable, you have to be able to take care of these people and get along with them, because if you're book smart and you can't get along with people, it's a waste of time. So
plus, Dave, plus you probably have the best hair of most 65-year-olds down in the Boca area. I would imagine that probably helps a little bit.
Well, yeah, the people, that's true. But, the people that I get are, in Boca, they're very wealthy people. So,
Dave, before these are good talking points that I want to get into. Before we go to your history, how you started, just in light of, let me just read a couple of these first. John Defendus, yes, hopefully I'll be in shape when I'm old like Dave. Rick Budanich says, go Comets. That's probably one of your guys, Dave.
That's Hicksville. There you go, brother.
Betty Wiley, good evening. Hi, Betty. How are you? John Defendus, yes, sir. Okay, so, that being said, what you just said, a lot of the people that come in, they're already your age. Are you, I asked John this, I ask a lot of the guys who I obviously hold in very high respect. Are you selective? Are there some people that you turn away because they just, you could tell that they're not going to fall into line with the proper thinking? Because that's important, because you don't want to waste your time.
Well, okay. I used to, when I was younger, I'm glad you asked that question, because when I was younger, look, I'm not a registered dietitian. I am not, we're not really supposed to prescribe. Okay. So when I was younger, I basically would try to really help out, not just with the exercise and the cardiovascular work, whatever it is, strength training. And I would, get them into trying to get their habits better, and make them eat better, change things. But what happened was, when they didn't, and I was younger, it would really bother me. And to the point where, kind of like stressed me out, because the people wouldn't listen. We know nutrition is 80% of the whole thing. I mean, if you don't eat well, you're not going to get the results you want. But if you're not eating well and you're not training, you're not getting any results. So now my attitude's a little different, because I get people, who are, owner of big businesses and this and that and all different types of people. And, if they don't want to listen to my, what I, changing the habits, and which some people don't, a lot of them do once they get to know me, because they know my passion for it. So the ones that don't, I say to myself, okay, if they don't want to do that, at least they're training, because maybe they won't do anything at all. Right. And it's better to do something than not to do anything, even if the habits aren't that good.
Right.
So that's my attitude now, because, I'm not going to have people, I'm not going to be so stressed out over people who really don't listen to that aspect. If they're in here 3 times a week and they're eating decent, but not the way I want them to eat, they're still going to get results.
John Booz chimed in. Every mistake I made me a smarter man today. Hey, John, I like to be the dumbest man in the room. That way I'm surrounded by smart guys like you, and I can steal the secrets. And I'm not talking about Arnold advices either. John, we're going to bring you on sometime. I want to bring you on with Dave and John Defendus at the same time. Man, I could have up to 6 people on here. It could be like everybody's kung fu fighting, but in a productive
I think that's
way.
Great.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, Dave, let's take people through your timeline, how you started. You competed. you know, your athleticism and how it served you, how it directed you. And as a businessman, you're very successful because listen, success. You and I were talking before we went on air when we were on the phone. People only see the tip of the iceberg, which is all the happy stuff. They don't see the struggle, which continues forever. You know, the difficulty in getting there. You enjoy it in a kind of a weird way, but you're going to take us through that, and you know, and I'll ask questions as we go. But you know, how you found your way down to, you know, Boca. You know, you got members to invest. You took chances. You took risks.
Yes.
And people are afraid, and that's why they don't get what they want. But you had people, you know, you raised money to get this nice building, and now you got a condo on the water, and you did all this by helping other people. So it wasn't like you weren't directing the energy towards you. Just like Defendus, you're directing it out. And if you do that enough, the goodness comes back to you. I know you espouse that.
Yeah. Well,
let's start. When did you start training? You started training when? At what age?
13, 12 or 13. I was. This is a quick little story. When I was.
Please.
Okay, when I was 12 years old, I used to have this gym teacher named Mr. Goldberg, who passed away 2 or 3 years ago. And we've been he's pretty influential in my life. John Defendus, I don't know if John Booz knows him, but John Defendus definitely knows who Mr. Goldberg is, you know? So Marvin Goldberg. So when I was in 7th grade, I went into gym class, and, you know, we had a very big gym class and a lot of students. And so we all sat around this mat, and I was a little pudgy kid at the age of 12, you know? So I went into
you were overweight, Dave?
Little bit, just a little.
Let me ask you, was your family, like, did your mother make sure you ate all your food off the plate and all that?
Yeah, no, well, my mother was, she was the best. She just passed away a few years ago, but she was the best. She's another very special lady. But I was a little bit overweight because, you know, I like my cookies and things like that, you know, just like everybody else. Me too, but I avoid them though. But so I'm sitting around the mat with about maybe 60, 70 kids, and the best wrestler in the school was a guy named Steve Conti. And I know John Defendus knows who he is. So he was in 9th grade and I was in 7th. And this guy, Mr. Goldberg, goes, okay, who's going to challenge Steve Conti? So he was about 135 pounds. There I am, you know, 7th grade. I raised my hand. I'll challenge Steve Conti. He goes out and just beats me up. Throws me all over the mat. Next day, I come into gym class. Who challenges Steve Conti? Raise my hand again. Beat me up again. Within about a month, I was doing pretty good against this guy. Because I was wrestling him every day. I didn't care. I just went out there. He threw me around. Then I got kind of, you know, a little bit better. You know, he still beating me up. And this guy, Mr. Goldberg, goes, you know, you're a tough little kid. And you're Jewish to boot. He goes like that. And he goes, you're going out for the wrestling team. And then everything fell into place after that. And he gave me my first routine, my weightlifting routine. My mother went out and got me the Dan Laurie plastic plates.
Of course. Hey, Dave, since you mentioned them both, I have to ask you this. I ask all wrestlers this. I got threatened by the NCAA collegiate super heavyweight Greco-Roman wrestling champion when I was in college. I was a bouncer. He threatened to kill me, but I talked him out of it. But just that's a little aside. Would you say, being a bodybuilder and a wrestler and very good at both, which one requires harder training?
Wrestling.
Really? And you didn't even hesitate saying that. Why is that?
Didn't even hesitate.
No kidding. The hardest.
Because bodybuilding has a lot to do with what your genetics is. So if you have good genes, you can be very good at it. You have to have good genes to be a really good bodybuilder. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
No, there's no doubt.
Okay, so in wrestling,
Defendus agrees with you, by the way. Wrestling.
Yeah. And now I'm going to go way ahead, just for a second.
Please.
And what I'm doing now with this rowing, this 2,000 meter rowing, is so difficult. it reminds me of the wrestling. You know, the training.
Really?
Yeah. To do a 2,000 meter rowing, I would say to compete in a 2,000 meter race, it is one of the hardest things in my life that I've ever done.
Really?
Because it's endurance, power, strength. You got to plan it out. You don't just go and do it. Pace, stroke rate, heart rate. You're watching like every metric that you're trying, because you want to do and you don't try to beat the person next to you. You beat your personal best.
Hey Dave, I'm gonna ask you an obvious question. If you're not attendant to those indices you just mentioned, heart rate, stroke volume, all that stuff, you will not be as good as you could be at rowing. It's not something you can skip, right?
Rowing is a sport, and you have to know how to read all those metrics on that monitor, the PM5 monitor. If you don't plan out that 2,000 meter, they call it fly and die. If you fly, you're going to die, because it takes, for me, 7 minutes and 15 seconds, which I started out at almost 9 minutes to begin. Think about that. 2,000 meters, 9 minutes compared to 7:15 now. That's a minute and 45 seconds of rowing with meters, but it's a minute 45-second difference in time, right? But I'm going the same amount of meters. And now I'm doing it.
Hey, Dave, let's okay, you impressed upon us wrestling is harder. It sounds like it. But let's go back to, you started with the Lurie set, you started getting muscular.
Yeah, okay.
Let's talk about you went into wrestling and then bodybuilding.
Okay, so basically what happened was when I got my weight set, the coach gave me a program. I followed the program. The only thing I didn't know when I was in 7th and 8th grade, that you're supposed to put the weights up. I kept the same workout for about 6 months, 8 reps with the same weight. I didn't know. You don't know what I was doing. So what happened was then I got into the wrestling, and wrestling, I excelled. I was a national champion. I did very well. So
are you talking for high school or college?
High school Greco-Roman national champ.
Wow.
And then I went to Montclair State. We were Division III national champs for 3 years in a row.
Wow.
And then I started getting hurt. I started getting injuries. I
Hey
started.
Dave, did you blow out your knee? Is that what it was?
Yeah. When I was in 9th or 10th grade, I dislocated my knee. And then from then on in, it was never the same.
Dave, since this was the 70s, because I played high school. I started high school in 78. I graduated in 82. Played football for the first 2 years. And I could have played the whole 4, but I thought I was going to win Teenage Mr. America, so I stopped playing. And of course, I was wrong. One of my regrets. But I remember back then when lifting weights in 78, I was lifting weights, and the coaches, they were like, as long as you do it on your own, it's fine. They weren't like watching over us. It's not that they didn't care, but it wasn't something that was do or die. When you were you lifting weights when you were wrestling, or did they suggest that you lift weights, or that didn't start?
Yeah. I mean, when I was a senior in high school, I was bench pressing close to 370.
Wow.
No, I was known for my strength. I mean, I was definitely known for I was so much stronger than everybody else in high school. I mean,
Dave, were you also pulling trains at that point as part of your?
No, that was with Denny. Hey, I got that I got.
Hold on, Dave, hold on, because people probably don't know. Dave Spector's kind of famous for a layout in one of the magazines where they set it up where Dave was in great shape. He looked like Hercules, and like any champion. And they had him where he was pulling I guess it was a schematic was you were pulling a train with some cables.
We had a cable, like a big cable with chains, and I was sitting on the track doing a cable row on the back of a train.
Okay, right.
So Denny was there shooting pictures, and all of a sudden, this cop comes in, and he didn't know what was going on. He took out his gun, and he pointed it right at me, and he goes, "What the hell are you doing?" And I stood up. I was pretty big then. I wasn't the biggest bodybuilder in the world, but I was about 200 pounds, and I was in shape for a show. and he arrested us, and he took us
Dave,
to the
Dave,
court.
that sounds like what happens outside today.
Yeah, exactly. And he took us down to the courthouse, and then he had to pay $500 to get us free.
What year? Hey, Dave, what year was that?
That was probably 70, probably
Late,
79, probably 80, 79 or 80.
so that's equal to about 2,500 or so. So that was a lot of money.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know where Denny got the money, but he had it in his pocket. I didn't have it. That's for sure. The only thing I had in my pocket was a can of tuna, you know?
Of course. Who doesn't? Denny Walker is still alive. Is he still with us?
Yeah, I talked to him, I would say maybe about 3 years ago. Yeah, he is, you know?
Oh, good.
And we email once in a while. He was a good guy. I liked him a lot. He was a good guy.
So
And
take us.
He was a good photographer too.
Oh, very good. You blew your knee out. So what was the decision then? You were done with wrestling. So bodybuilding came up. Well,
okay, wrestling in college, I blew my knee out at elbow surgery. I had a lot of surgery. You know, I mean, I don't know. My body started breaking down a little bit, I guess, even in college. So I couldn't wrestle anymore. And
Dave, were you a good student? Were you interested in school, or were you really there for wrestling, or what was the deal?
I was a very good student. Yeah, I was a good student.
What was your focus of study?
Let's see. Well, I ended up getting into like health. I graduated as a health teacher. You know,
oh, okay.
I was a health teacher. Yeah,
good.
That was my thing. You know, so I didn't know I was going to be a personal trainer then. Nobody knew about personal training at that time.
No.
So, I ended up. You know, I was just, you know, health was my thing. You know, working out, doing that stuff, and I also played football too for the high school. But that was, you know, wrestling was my main sport. I played lacrosse also. I played three sports. You know?
Dave, you were always very lean. You were known. I remember the pictures, especially your chest, cut to ribbons. Skip Robinson just joined us. You know Skip, right?
Yeah,
Skip
sure.
He's one of the Northeastern boys here. Nice, what a great guy. Let me ask you: were you always lean throughout? Were you always lean through rest? You weren't. No kidding. So you would get heavy.
I mean, I was a little bit smooth when I was wrestling, but I was a big kid. You know, I mean, you know, my diet wasn't as good because from what I learned later with, you know, the one who really taught me how to eat was John Booz. You know.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, John. That's another whole story. Yeah, that's another whole story. But you know, I didn't really, you know, I was like kind of a crazy kid. You know, not crazy, but you know, I was like, you know, I like to have fun and do things. I was a bouncer, you know, all these things, you know. So, you know, go out with the women, whatever it is, you know. But and you know. I mean, it's just funny. I used to. Can I say a story here? Am I allowed to say a story or not? A quick story.
Well, hold on one second, John. Defend us. We got to quote John because John, you know, John is one of our leaders, man. You know, Dave. He says Dave is Jewish. Of course, he was a good student. Have you ever met a dumb Jewish kid? My best friend from Cairo School. My best friend from Cairo School is Jewish. Very successful. And listen, he saved my life. And let me tell you. He's taught me, you know, some Hebrew. He's a great guy, really good. And I'm not just saying because he's Jewish, just fundamentally a good guy. But if that helps, hey, you use whatever fuel you can. Okay, so Gerald Scalise is here. Dave and Booz, great guy.
I remember Jerry Scalise, that's for sure.
I bring the whole East Coast bodybuilding family together.
All these guys were teenagers, and I was just, you know, they were like 17, 18. I was like I'm 3 or 4 years older than those guys, you know.
Well, Dave, speaking of John Booz, so how did you run into him and he taught you nutrition? Did he see you and say, hey, you've got some potential, let's get you competing?
No, okay, now this is a good story. I used to work at a gym called Olympic Health Club years ago, and that's where I met Al Order, who to me is Al Order is a 4-time Olympic gold medalist. He won the Olympic in 56, 60, 64, and 68, and the only man ever to break his own Olympic records in each Olympics from those 4 years on, you know. So, and the nicest, most modest, gentle giant, one of my best friends, and just, you know, and I, you know, there's some people in your life that you meet that are like infectious, and he's one of them. You know, he was just the nicest person, and bright, and his laugh and everything about him was, and he moved to Fort Myers, which was about 2 hours from here, and we used to see each other once a month. I'd go there, he'd come here, and you know, he passed away a few years ago.
Hey, Dave, I asked Johnny D this, and I'll ask you, why do you think someone like that, as decorated of an athlete that he was, 4 gold medals, he competed over a 16-year period in the Olympics, why wasn't he, you know, the same status as somebody like Carl Lewis or, you know, Bruce Jenner when he was Bruce Jenner?
Well, you know, I think the discus is not recognized like running or sprinting or jumping and you know, he just, and you know, in the 56, 64, you know, those years, the Olympics wasn't as big as they got to be. You know, I think that the coverage wasn't as good, but the athlete was, and that's what counts. You know, and he always used to say, like, it's funny you said Carl Lewis. He would say to me, Carl Lewis, you know, look, this guy's got a publicist. He's got this, he's got that, he's got this, he's got all these people around him. You know what I had? And I go, what, Al? My towel. He goes, you know what he used to do? He used to throw the discus, put the towel down, walk back, and try to throw it past the towel. That's what he would do, you know? And there's so many, I could tell you stories about him. It would take 3 hours, but just the things, and he would always, he never won the Olympic trials. Never won. 4 gold medals in 4 consecutive Olympics. The guy never won the Olympic trials. And he always said it was a 4-year plan. It's a 4-year plan. It's not.
Hey, Dave, so you were around really, really successful people, as you are one yourself. Would you agree? And when I say would you agree, it doesn't mean you have to agree, but would you agree that the difference between people who really exceed themselves on a very high level is they hold themselves to very high standards? They won't accept, you know, they know what they can do, and they don't accept less ever.
I think, you know, that's so true, because in my brain, I was looking for something that I can have a passion in again at my age, you know. So I knew it couldn't be wrestling anymore because of my limitations, and I knew it can't be bodybuilding because of my limitations. So I wanted to find something.
Dave, will you talk about those limitations in a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, good.
Sure.
Not yet, but yeah, okay.
Yeah, but this is part of it, because the limitations to me aren't really limitations anymore, because I found something that's a passion that I can do that doesn't hurt my limitations.
Right. The rowing.
So, the rowing, because when you have a knee, let's say I got a right knee that has to be replaced, and a shoulder that has to be replaced. John Defenders knows all about that. So I have a knee and a shoulder like that. It's from all the years of training. And I mean, we know that. Come on, the pounding with all the heavy weights and years like that. So anything in excess isn't good. We know that. So now I figured out, when you row, you're horizontal, right? So when you go on an elliptical machine, you're vertical. If you're vertical and you're not pounding, you're still getting that joint. You got all that weight, all those repetitions going on that joint. It's still wear and tear on that joint.
Dave, compare that, if you would, compare that to either a step mill or a stairmaster, because there's kind of 3 extremes. You got the row, you got the vertical, you know, you're vertical on the elliptical, and then you've got kind of the up and down pounding of a stairmaster.
It very similar with the elliptical to stairmaster.
It is, okay.
it's still going to be pounding because you got whatever you weigh is going up and down on there.
Right.
It's not as bad as running because running is really pounding and it's 4.5 times every time you step.
Yeah, we want to talk about, that's one of the bullet points we have for people over 50. We'll talk about that later. Okay.
So I just want to plug this in here. This is getting low. Just give me 1 second, okay?
No, that's okay. Everyone, your questions are appreciated. Dave is just going to straighten that out a little bit right now. We're going to go over Dave's history in training, competing, injuries. It's coming back right now. There he is. Let me just put a little click on this.
Sorry
there
about that.
That's okay.
I had to plug my phone in. I was just saying, what was the question? I just forgot. I'm sorry.
I was talking about the 3 different apparatuses. You know,
yeah. Well, I just find that as we age, look, the synovial fluid isn't as, you know, that kind of dries up when we get older.
Oh yeah.
So we have to be very careful in what we do. The synovial fluid is what lubricates the joints, and as we get older, it dries up. So we have to be very careful in what we do. And I find that when you're doing things, I mean, you know, I should have just thought about that because the rowing's been around for years. But my friend Bob in California got me into this. So,
Dave, let's stop though, because I want to compartmentalize. We'll keep that at the end because
okay.
that's what you're doing now. And this is great stuff either way, but we can corral it a little better. Just talk about. I want to talk, and not that I want to get it out of the way, but I had one really top legendary bodybuilder. He doesn't want to come on here because he doesn't want to associate with bodybuilding anymore. Because now he's into acting and writing books, and that's fine. But I try to explain to him. I go, well, listen, we don't have to get into bodybuilding, but that's the only reason why I know who you are. So,
right.
So with you, you know, I know you from this, and so we'll touch upon it and how it, you know, put you on an upward trajectory. How you started.
You know, look, look. I said rowing is very difficult, and wrestling is very difficult. Bodybuilding was difficult too. I'm not saying it was easy.
You're right.
The genes are great to have, but the training. I remember training with John Booz, and we would be on the floor a lot. You know, training. You know, we used to do these 20 rep squats. Of course, you know about that. And we would go to who fails first. Just go.
Dave, let's get into this for a second, though. Something you said. You had to train very hard. You trained with very good champions. You rose to the top in bodybuilding and wrestling. But the thing I'm curious about is when you were in 7th grade and the other kid was in 9th grade, how did you dig deep? Did you have some type of fire within you, some type of unrest, if I may ask, that made you take that chance every day instead of being quiet and challenge that kid? Did you draw on some type of anger or angst or something?
Well, you know, that's interesting. Okay, you know, this will be quick, but I'll do this.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
When I was like 7 years old, my father died of a massive heart attack. So it was my mother and my 3 brothers.
Right.
2 years before that, I had a sister and she died. So
wow.
They gave penicillin. They came to the house, gave her penicillin, and she was allergic, and they made house calls. The doctor left, and she died. Okay, so here we go. So I think that indirectly, we had it tough. You know, I mean, it was very tough on my mother to bring up the 3 boys. I mean, look, I'm not taking anything back.
No,
I had a good life, and
yes,
you know,
hey, Dave, I appreciate you telling us that, and I think it's good that people understand where your urgency comes from, because maybe that lent you some urgency. You know,
I've always thought about that, and I think to myself, you know, one of my goals in my life was never to be on medication, and I've never been on medication. So.
Wow. That's
one of my goals. So I said to myself that I don't want to take any. Yeah, I might take a leave for my knee or something, but there's no pills for cholesterol, blood pressure.
Wow.
And, yeah, and every time I go to my doctor, he almost like kicks me out. You know, he goes, you know, "What are you doing here?" You know. So and it's everything. It's everything I've done. You know, the eating well, training, since I've been 13. Maybe I missed because I had surgery on my knee. Never missed.
Maybe you'll agree. You know what I like in it too? When you live this type of life, you've invested in superior health equity. You put in, you invested in yourself. Now you have this tremendous equity where the average U.S. family, and I read these statistics, and who knows, the average U.S. family has 17 of those orange prescription bottles in their medicine chest.
I know. It's
Isn't
crazy.
necessary? But please,
absolutely crazy.
Tell me how you got it.
You know how many people I've trained, and you know people I've trained and got them off the blood pressure? A lot.
Oh yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I want to get into that, but just tell us about your first show. And I know you didn't compete that long, but you had a lot of success.
Well, yeah, I competed from 1978 to 1980, and that was it. 2 years.
Yes.
And then I tore my biceps tendon off the bone. That was it. Done.
Right.
You know? And John will know about this one. This one's really good. So, and it's about other bodybuilders too, who everyone's gonna know who these guys are. My first show was novice. It was a Mr. Apollo show that I went into, and John trained. I trained with John, and I got really ripped. I only weighed 174.
Wow.
For that first show. That's all I weighed. So I go into the show, and I don't know what to expect. You know, I mean, it's my first bodybuilding show. And I remember I'm wearing this blue sweats, and Boo said to me, all I want you to do is stay in those sweats, 50 push-ups, and get out on stage. And don't look at anybody else. So I'm going, and I'm looking at these guys. The guys are 200, 215. So I go in
and Dave, back then 215 was enormous.
Yeah. There was I know it was big, you know. So, to make a long story short, I ended up walking away with the novice. You know, There was nobody. You know, I just blew everybody away. And then in the open, I went into the open because I did so well in the novice. And I'm in the tall man's class, and I'm standing there, and right next to me was John Kemper.
Wow, John Kemper.
John? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, and you know, he's working out. I see this guy, he's big. I'm going, oh my God, this guy's going to kill me. So I did my 50 push-ups. All right. It was tall men then, you know. All right, let's go. We're going to walk out on stage. I took off my shirt. I took off my pants, and I had my trunks on. I'm standing there, and he looks at me and he goes, who the hell are you? I blew him away. I blew him away. But
really?
Yeah, blew him away. It wasn't even close. I was ripped. I was so ripped. I mean, maybe he was a little soft, probably. I've seen him in better shape. But I was ripped to shreds, you know.
Was he I know we talked about this, but was he mad about that? Was he pissed?
A little bit, because this newcomer comes in who won the novice, beat him, you know.
Right. Yeah.
But here's what happened. You know who was in this short man's class? Tufel.
Oh, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah. And Tufel won, and I took second.
No kidding.
Overall. Yeah, because he was short man, and he was like 20 years old then, you know. So that was my first contest, and I was really happy with that. And then, you know, each year I put on another 10 pounds. You know, I put on weight kind of quickly training with John, because we started training pretty heavy, you know. And it was me, John, Booze, and Al Order for about 2 or 3 years training in John's basement every day. Now, the thing with John Booze, I met John Booze through Al Order, because at the gym, Al would say, you know, you got some potential, you know, because he would see me train. I didn't know what I was doing. He goes, I got a friend I train with a couple of times a week. Why don't you go meet him? So this is very funny. So I go, okay. So I call up John, and I go, he goes, why don't you come over? So I go, okay. So I go over his house, and, you know, John's not the tallest guy in the world, but big, right? So he comes out from his doorway in his house. It's about 3 steps down, and he's working out. It was about maybe 6 o'clock. I got there, and it was freezing out, and he's steaming, and it's all smoke coming off his body. And I never saw somebody so big. And I'm standing down at the step. He looked like he was about 7 feet tall. So he took me downstairs in the basement and he goes, take your clothes off. And I said, are you kidding me? I'm going, this guy's telling me to take my clothes off. He wanted to see how I looked. And there I am in like, I'm like 20, 21 or whatever. I'm in my Fruit of the Loom underwear. So he goes, start flexing. So I didn't know how to really flex that well. I was a kid. So I'm flexing and doing this. He goes, tomorrow, 4 o'clock, be here. I said, oh, great. Okay. So I get there about 4:15. He's 15 minutes into his workout. And he goes, don't you ever be late again. And I never was. That was it. And it was just me.
He doesn't quite sound like Steve Mahalik.
No, he's not like Mahalik, but he was, we trained very methodically. We did, we.
Hey, Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt, but is this true? Rick Budinich states that Booz has the best training equipment anywhere.
John Booz makes all his equipment himself.
Wow.
By hand.
Impressive.
John Booz is a very talented individual when it comes to knowing how the body works and different angles and things like that. And
Dave, where is he? Is he up in Maine?
No. He's on Long Island. He's in Babylon, West Babylon.
Oh, okay. All right.
He trains people in his house. He's been doing it ever since I've been there. So and when Al and I and John used to train, it was just when Al used to get hurt, he used to get hurt because he was older, he would come just to watch us train. That's how hard we trained. He would just sit there. We go, Al, what are you doing here? It gets me psyched to watch you guys,
Dave, I'm curious. You shot up very quickly. I think you won the Atlantic States.
Yes, yeah.
And then did you do the America or the junior?
I took 4th in my class in the USA. That was in 80. And then right after that, I was going to go into the America. And that's when I tore my biceps tendon. It ripped off the bone and I just couldn't come back. My symmetry was all off after that. I tried to make a comeback, but when your symmetry is off, that was my thing, was my symmetry, my definition. It wasn't my size, so I had to be extra lean and cut up, which, that's what I depended on.
Before that terrible injury, in your head and going along the course of bodybuilding and all this stuff that you had in your head, all this talented, this potential you had, were you thinking in terms of, hey, maybe I can, win the America and become an IFBB pro? Or were you thinking I'm going to get into business and this is just something I'm doing for now?
Well, I would have loved to train a few more years and get more longevity like John did, defend us, and right. Booz. But I think my legs were a little bit lacking compared to my upper body genetically. Even though my legs were lean, I didn't have the John Defendis calves, and the thickness in the thighs. Maybe the leanness in the upper body, yes. But
Dave, did you compete at 6 feet tall? Is it you were 6 feet?
No, I was 5'10". It was 5'10".
Okay, 5'10". John Defendis just said Dave has a wicked, awesome side chest pose. To me, he looked like Cal Scullick. That's
a big compliment. Thank you, John. No, you know something? Almost every contest I win in, I got best chest. And most
an iconic picture of you is on the pec deck. Pec deck picture with the striations in your chest.
Yeah, I really did have some nice.
It's obvious you've trained very hard, but other people train very hard and they don't have that. So there is a genetic proclivity to developing better in certain areas.
Yeah, it is. But something else too. I look at myself in the mirror now, okay, at the age that I am. You have to look at yourself. You have no choice, right? So, and I'm very lean. I am not as big as I was, but at a body weight of like 165, I'm really ripped, and it feels good to be, I'm not into that. It's interesting now when I train now, I train to row. I don't train for like I did with the bodybuilding. You know, it's a whole different thing now. Now, yeah, I mean, when I train now, because my passion is rowing, that's my passion, and helping people, of course, in my business. But what's so great about it now, when I train, if you want to be faster, how are you going to train faster?
Let me read this. Let me read this from John, and then we're going to go into the guy you met in the bar, who you helped, and this is what started your personal training career. I remember you told me this story. You met some guy, and
yeah,
and then, because I want to talk about how it, how it germinated, and you ended up down in Boca, I want to talk about all the people you help and your strategy, your approach, and then get into rowing. And you at your age, listen, when I talk about age, it's only a marker. I never speak of it in terms of a handicap, because I don't think it is. But John Defender says Dave's pecs and arms were unreal. I was blown away when I met him and trained arms with him. So, coming from John. John had some pretty good arms. Well, he still does.
Yeah.
John has those calves. I mean, listen, if I didn't have veins, I wouldn't have calves. So, listen, I did everything I could. They just, I don't know what it is. So listen, you met this guy, and there was no personal training, right? It wasn't an industry at this juncture.
Not at all. You're talking. This was probably probably mid '80s.
Well, tell us, hey Dave, tell us the story about the guy who was. I think he owned a car dealership.
Yeah, you got a good memory, man.
No, I remember everything, and that's called torture. Some things you'd like to forget, you can't. He's supposed to keep you warm at night, But no, I think you told me you kept seeing him on TV on his commercials, and every time you'd see him, he was slimmer and slimmer. And people started saying, "Hey, man, what's going on?"
Yeah. Well, okay. There was. That's when I was in Syracuse, New York. I got into this in Syracuse. When I won Mr. New York State, that's I did won Mr. New York State. The guy who was the MC, was a guy named Jim Rosselli. He was a physical therapist in upstate New York, Syracuse. So I was on Long Island. I won the New York State, and it was I think it was my birthday or his, I don't remember exactly. So, and he had a party at his house, went to his house. I had the trophies and they were all happy, and it was his birthday. So we had a really nice time. I go back to Long Island. He calls me up. He goes, "Listen, I want to open up gyms in Syracuse, and I want you to be a partner." This is what he basically said to me. He goes, "I like you and this and that." So I scraped together about $1,500. I mean, I really scraped it. And that's what I put into it. And to make a long story short, I moved up to Syracuse, which with the weather there is horrendous. I didn't realize how bad it was. But I moved up there, and we ended up having 5 gyms, and we did well,
Wow.
So, and I had another partner, so there were 3 of us. So basically what happened was we had 5 gyms, then we split them up. My partner and I took 2, and that guy, Jim, took 3. So now we have 2 gyms. And what happened was I was out one night at a bar, and I'm standing there, and this guy was right next to me, and his name was Ben Donato. He had a handlebar mustache. He probably weighed about 260. Heavy, loud mouth. And I'm just, standing there. And he goes, "Hey." And I go, What? He goes, "I would love to look like you." That's what he said to me. So I go, "Okay." And I thought to myself, and this was right at the time of Body by Jake.
Body by Jake.
He was on TV all the time. There's another story I can tell you about. But
he was from, Jake was from Long Island, I think.
Long Island, and he ended up going to California,
Right.
And I saw him on TV, and I go, if this guy can train people, I can train people. That's what I said to myself. And he was getting like $100, $75 an hour then, whatever.
That's a ton of money back then.
That's a ton of money.
Ton.
So what happened was that he's there, and I go, "Hey, okay, why don't you work out with me?" And I said, he said, yeah, great idea. He gave me his phone number. He said, "Call me up, and you can come to the gym, and I'll train you." He goes, "Okay." I called him 2 or 3 times, no answer, never called back. Never saw him again. About 2 months later, I get a phone call, and he goes, "Is this Dave Spector?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "This is Ben Donato. I'm a fat SHIT." And that's what he said to me. And he goes, I'm yours. So he came to my gym. I started training him 6 days a week right off the bat. He wanted to come every day. So I figured it out, split routine, whatever it was, a little bit of cardio, and broke it up. And he was on TV all the time in the commercial.
Yeah. Remember you telling me that.
Ford dealership. He went from 260 to about 175.
Wow.
In a short period of time because he was training so much.
Probably didn't even look like him, right?
It didn't. And he was so appreciative. And then it was like, I couldn't, it was like one after the other, from training one person to training 20 people within about 2 weeks.
Dave, that was almost like an advertisement for you.
Well, because Syracuse is a small place.
Right.
And there's, and every place has a pocket of money somewhere.
Oh, of course.
And so all of a sudden, all these people started coming in. And then ever since then, I've worked 14 hours a week, and now I'm 65.
You snap your fingers, and all of a sudden you wake up, and all of a sudden, hey, listen, being 65 beats the alternative of not being 65, is then you know where you are, right?
No.
So when did you? I know you kind of broke up with that deal up in Syracuse somehow, and you ended up going down to Boca. What happened with that?
Okay, the first thing I did, I got so busy with that in Syracuse that I told the partner I want out because we were splitting the money. I was training him in the place, and we were splitting the money because we both were in that place, in the same place. It was a gym, and I did my personal training in there. So I got out, and we did our thing. One went one way, and then I opened up a studio in Syracuse.
Oh, you did?
From 2000, I was there for like 16 years. I had 2 places.
Oh, wow.
And then it was just, I just couldn't do it anymore. You go to work, it's raining, sleeting, hailing all at once.
Oh, it's a grind.
My mother lived in Boca. So I ended up selling one of my places and getting rid of the other. And I'll tell you another quick story, which you'll like. So I left there, and it took me about 2 years, a year and a half to get a place open here, not knowing anybody. I mean, I had the condo here, so I had a place to live. And I ended up, at that point, I'm living on my credit cards,
Wow.
Yeah, because, 2 years without working, I was trying to get everything organized to open up a place. And I worked in a place training people. This was in 1996. I moved down in 96, and I opened up in 98. So you had no cash for the most part. You were going, I've been there. I know what it's like. But when when you're back against the wall, you can always, if you're really up against it, you can find the money somehow. And you did. Nothing stops me.
No,
that's what it is.
That's why I have you here. That's the attitude. That's what I'm talking about. Nothing.
I've been, down and out and up and down,
Yeah.
That's all about. I mean, I'm like, that's life, Everybody goes through it. I don't care how much money you have. You get sick. You got this. You got, So then I ended up opening up here and doing well. But the thing I wanted to say is that when I left Syracuse, I owed, because you pay for visits up front, right?
Right.
So when I left, I owed about $35,000 to people. I called every one of them up and said, I'm going to pay you back. And I did.
Wow.
Most people in business would not do that.
Oh, no.
They would skip and say, F you, I'm done with you,
the money's gone.
Do something else. Because those people were just to me. They're my clients.
Right.
I'm not gonna take advantage of them, So I ended up, I figured it out and I paid them all back. And I think that was the thing to do.
I call that getting down to the bare bones and showing people what you're all about. And you did that in another way. You got this opportunity with a building, a really good building, and the opportunity came up where you could buy it, but you didn't have the cash. So what did you do?
Well, that's what, that's what's so important, because I think that what happens when you become a personal trainer, or you have a personal training gym, you're training people all your life, but you don't have anything in equity. There's no equity there.
Right.
So I decided that, I am not going to open up another place unless I buy, because now it's going to be worth some money in the future. So, and this place is paid off in 2 years now, which is great. 2 years, I have no mortgage, no interest, no nothing.
Wow.
And I got offered $1.3 million for the property.
Wow.
Yeah, it's downtown Boca. I mean, it's worth money. So, so what happened was I had these clients, and in my old place, and I said, listen, I don't have the cash. I want to sell visits up front, and I'll give you a discount. I gave him like a 15% discount. I don't remember exactly. So I got 12 people to give me 10,000. I came up with 120,000.
But Dave, let me just stop you. To be fair, like you were intimating earlier, these clients, this area, they're a little more well-heeled than other areas as far as money, right?
No, but that's true. But let me finish. And I'll tell you, no, seriously. So I got 120,000 to put down here. That was the down payment, right? Okay. Most, and I opened up, and things are going really well. So, if a trainer who's good, and they get people who are paying them, I don't care if it's 50, 75, 100, whatever it is. If a person's paying $75 to $100 an hour, 3 times a week, they can afford $10,000.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if you get busy and you're working in Lifetime, or you're working in some other, or you're working from home or virtually, whatever it is, and you have enough clientele, and you get to that point where you're working 40, 50 hours a week, you got to think, what am I going to do in the future? What do I, you could put some cash away, but as you get older, you're not going to have the equity, and you end up saying, what did I do? So I would love to, I would really love to sit down with a lot of trainers and tell them, okay, this is what you can do. I know you guys can do this. You can take 10 of your people. Okay, even if it's $5,000, whatever it is, that's 50 grand on something. You can always find something. If you have $50,000 in your pocket, or 100,000, whatever it is, you figure it out. Or you find one of your clients to invest with you. They'll do it, because if you have people for 5, 6 years, they trust you, and you have a relationship. So
relationships, everything.
You have to think out of the box. You can't think, oh, okay, I'm gonna work 40 hours a week for the rest of my life, and I'm gonna be 60-something years old, and I got a few dollars in the bank, but that's not gonna last you forever.
No.
So
you know what, Dave, you should build a course. You should develop a course for trainers and teach them how to do this,
And it's not that hard.
No, of course not.
It's just, just thinking about it and putting it together,
It's hard, and we've already touched on this. It's hard pulling the lever and having the balls to do it, because it's a risk.
Mike,
all of a sudden, you've got a lot of pressure because you got to meet certain things and whatnot. But, I think you're like me. You're not married, no kids. So, you could take risks, and nobody's going to suffer if it goes sour. And there's something to that, because some people, they're beholden to obligations, and it changes the game a little bit,
No, it does. I mean, no, you're married, you have kids. Yeah, but then you got to think about them for the future.
Yeah,
too.
Right. Yes, that's true.
I mean, if you're going to end up having nothing to give them, I mean, that's what, part of it is, having kids,
Dave,
help the kids out.
To some people, it's kind of to their distaste, but things come down to math, math. And Mark, I like to quote this. I've done it with some other guys. Martin Luther King said it himself. He said, it's wonderful to do good things, but without money, it's kind of hard. So you got to have money. You got to manage it. You got to, you want to be responsible to yourself when you're old. You don't want to be a ward of the state and depend on others. It's like your entire life, you've controlled your body through training, and you want to be able to go to the end like that. You want control. Your path is only directed by you. And you do that if you take care of your financial state. So tell me now, your type of client, are they older? And let's go over some of these points, because you are you know, what kind of athlete would you call yourself now with the rowing?
What kind of athlete would I call myself?
You know, well, is that a component of CrossFit, or is that, you know, cross training, or what is that with the rowing? Is it only rowing that you do now as far as training?
All it is. You know, when I went to the World Championships, there were 3,500 contestants in Paris.
Wow.
This is big. See, you don't realize how big something is. And, you know, they're very big in the whole internet thing. You know, every workout I do, I write on a whiteboard because I have to see the paces I have to keep. I have a coach that helps me from the UK.
No kidding.
Yeah, I do. And he helps write up my workouts and gets me ready for to compete. I got the British Championships coming up virtually June 27th and 28th. It's
when you say virtually, what does that mean?
Well, that means they're gonna do it somehow on the internet, some
really?
Way virtually. Yeah, because nobody's doing it. You know, I mean, nobody's having any gatherings really now. You know, so
yeah,
they're gonna, and probably the competition's gonna be pretty steep because not all the people can afford to go to Paris to compete. You know,
right.
So now you can compete virtually. So I think it's going to be a really good turnout, and I'm pretty excited for it. You know, so it's always good to have something to strive for, no matter what it is. You know,
always.
So, and this, you know, Mike, to be honest with you, I feel like I'm 30 years old.
Wow.
I do. I really do. Even though I have limitations, you know, I really feel, you know, when I work, look, I'm working, you know, yesterday I had 13 appointments in a row, right? Okay. So after 13 appointments, I jumped on that rower for an hour. I had to do my workout. I'm not going to miss it. You know,
right here.
Yeah.
Right here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. You know,
and, Dave, let me ask you, do you incorporate any weight training with the panoply of training for preparing for the championships at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
yes, I do. I do. That's why I said I do 2 days a week of strength training. 2 days. I'm doing, and first thing I do, I mean, it'll be quick. First thing I do is I go outside, I push, pull, and reverse the sled. Okay. So I have about 200 pounds on the sled, and I try to run it in the back of my studio. I have a garage area about 60 yards that I use all the time with clients, and it's covered. It's really nice. So what I do is I go out there and I have, you know, a Rogue sled. It's called the dog sled, which is a great piece. I use with my clients all the time. It's a great piece. And John's got a sled too, Booze. A little different than mine, different type though. But and what I do,
John, you know what Defendus does? He doesn't have a sled. He has this mountain, and he puts 50 pounds of chains on his clients' necks, and he makes them walk up and down the mountain. I like to say I'm only kidding, but I'm probably not. I know he's done crazy.
Put the chain like really around their neck, though?
I don't know. I don't know. Something that really probably. Listen, I don't want to say it hurts, but you know, it makes you know pain lets you know you're alive. Would you say it's pain? When you're training a client, are you looking for them to have pain or to have discomfort?
Fatigue.
Fatigue. Okay, that's good. All right. So you ascribe.
No pain, hey, wait a second. No pain, no gain, no sense.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Pain is not
means,
good.
Listen, pain means you're injuring yourself, and you know, listen, you're supposed to be. You know what, Dave? Everybody is a bodybuilder, and it doesn't mean they compete, but they're building their body. So let's say you get a little old lady in, you still want to retard cell death. Cell death equals aging, and you're trying to build upon that. So you know, to get them to understand that. So yeah, you don't want, you know, it's fatigue. Yeah, I like that.
You know what else is also interesting? Everybody strength trains in my place. Everybody.
Everybody does what? What's that?
Strength trains. Everybody.
Right, of course. Right. Good.
You know, so it's really kind of funny because, you know, I do core work and all this stuff and all this magic, you know, not like, and then, you know, but it always goes back to the basics, man.
Always.
The basics are the best. Squats, bench press. I mean, come on now. I mean, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to stand on a ball with one foot and jump up and down, you know? I mean,
Dave, I was just reading an article. It's interesting you say that. I was just reading an article written by It might have been one of the old strength athletes from like the 50s, and he's still alive. He wrote it like the last decade, but he said, essentially, if you look at Reg Park, John Grimmick, Steve Reeves, the guys, the original bodybuilders from the 40s, 50s. If you look at studies now and data and everything that's driven by science, essentially things have not really departed too far afield from what they did back then. And what does that tell you? That tells you the human body, evolutionarily speaking, it's not ready to accept all this new crazy shit because it changes slower than an iceberg. It takes 1,000 years for, a structural or physiologic change to occur in a body. So yeah, essentially, like you said, basics.
Even look. I like the battling ropes. I think they're really good. I think the battling ropes are good. I think the sled. I think the sleds are really good because it's working everything. Yeah, I mean your endurance, your power, your strength. There's some really good tools out there, but it comes down. You're pushing a sled. It's like that's basic. It's basic. It's
Dave, I had a good friend and a top trainer out from the Midwest. He's in Arizona, Dr. Aaron Witten, great powerlifter, bodybuilder, really smart guy. He just shot me some questions, general questions I think that would apply to people, all people, but over 50, the longevity group. What do you think about cardio, proper types and amount, if at all?
Proper types and amount. Well, that's a. I'm going to go back for a second. When you look at formulas for target heart rate and things like that, everyone trains these certain zones and things, but those formulas are plus or minus 12 to 15 beats. They're they're not that accurate. When you take a 220 minus your age or 205 or the Carbonin formula, all these different formulas, okay, here's a perfect example. I'm going to give you a perfect example with myself. Before I started doing the rowing with the coach, he said to me, I want to give you a test on the rower. Okay. So I said, okay, well, let's do that. So I had that. We went to certain paces and wrote the heart rate down and went through the whole thing. I got my heart rate up to about, I think it was 173. Okay. Which is pretty high for me. That was my max that I couldn't go anymore. According to the formulas, my max is about 155. That's 17 beats. It's not 155. Because when I went to my max, I got to 173. You don't do that with people who aren't fit. You got to be fit to do this. And here's the other thing. If you go on a bike or a treadmill and you do a submax test or you get a stress test and the doctor gives you all this stuff to follow and you go on an assault, it's not the same thing. It's on a treadmill or it's on a bike. That's a VO2 max on a treadmill and a bike. It's not a VO2 max on an assault. So you can't, the formulas are just for the general public. And then, you want to get into rate of perceived exertion, the formulas, so you can narrow down where the person should be working at, because what's good for Joe is not good for Jim.
Well, Dave, let me ask you, I agree, because, I think the government, under their auspices, we have to succumb to some of these tenets that they lay out. Like you look at BMI.
Exactly. I mean, that's a perfect.
I mean, come on. Listen. Like they'll say things like 30% of the population is obese. Dr. Dusa, based on anecdotal evidence, I say it's more like 70%.
Yeah.
So I think it's best, as you do, take it as a case by case basis. But do you tailor? I mean, you've got to get away from these formulas, obviously, person to person. Yes.
Well, what I do is that, once I start training somebody, I can tell by, I do use rate of perceived exertion to figure, and like I'll take the formula, okay, and I'll take the rate of perceived exertion where they're working at, You know how they're either I usually use the 1 to 10 Borg scale, and then I'll watch their heart rate and watch how they're breathing, and ask them where they're working at 5 or 6, 3 or 4. That will help me a lot to determine where they should be at. But I do use the formula because I have the target formula with me, right? And I'm looking at it. And then at the same time, I'm looking at the rate of perceived exertion on the person. And I put those two together. Then it's much more accurate. It's not perfect. And then as a person gets more conditioned, it changes too. You know, so, but I've been doing this for so long. It's not that hard for me to figure where somebody should be working at, because I've been doing this for so long. Okay, somebody's on a beta blocker. You take those formulas, you throw them out. Those formulas forget about it. They're not going to work. No. So you go by rate of perceived exertion, and then you see what the heart rate is. If they're working at 100, because that beta block is keeping their heart rate and blood pressure down, and they're working at, let's say, a level 5 or 6 on that Borg scale, that's where they should be. Not at the 120 or 130.
Everything you're saying is why I like your approach, because I liken personal training, the industry, to healthcare. You know, it should be considered healthcare. It's that important, and you've got to take that approach. Yeah, somebody comes in with a beta blocker. There's a lot of issues there. You can't just, you got your certification 2 days over the internet, and you don't really know anything, and you're doing the same thing.
Do you know how many? Yeah, do you know exactly? Do you know how many people would take that person with the beta blocker and try to push their heart rate up?
Most.
So they don't know. Look, look, somebody comes out. I got a 5-page medical questionnaire they fill out. They do a oxygen saturation. Look, can you see this back here? Everyone.
No, I can't.
I can pick it up.
It's okay. Yeah, what is that, Dave?
That takes, it takes blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen saturation, temperature, and everybody goes once a week. They go on this.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Look, I don't want, if I get a person in here, and when somebody comes into me for the first time, I have a consultation, they're going through that. Because if I see a systolic of 150, they're going to their doctor. I'm not going to train them. I'm not going to do it. I go, listen, we got to get I'm on blood pressure medication. I take it every other day. I go, you should be taking it every day, like the doctor says, So I said, listen, I'm going to take a picture of this, and I put it on your phone, and I want you to send it to your doctor and tell him you're starting an exercise program and see what he says. And then I start trying to correlate with the person's doctor, because that's what I want to do. I'm not a physician. I'm a suspectician. That's what I am. I suspect things. I am not a doctor.
No, good.
I suspect, and through my knowledge, I don't know how much they should be taking, or if they're taking it. You have to really channel these people out. You got to really sit them down. They fill a 4-page medical questionnaire. I do body composition with the body metrics, which I think is great. Great body comp. It's with ultrasound. Really good. Real good. And then, we do fitness testing. I do fitness testing with them. I do, oxygen saturation. I do spirometer, check their lungs, see if they're doing okay. The blood pressure, I do, then we go out and we do a little bit of flexibility testing, a little bit of,
Dave, before you go there, I think you mentioned you do some blood panels too. You suggest blood panels?
Right now, I do. But right now, with the way things are, I don't know if it's the best idea right now.
What do you mean, as far as
people are kind of shaky about the pandemic and everything like that.
Oh, okay, all right. Considering, I see, right.
Yeah, okay. So I do it, but I haven't been doing it since this started. I want them to feel comfortable with it, and myself to feel comfortable, before I start bringing that in. But no, it takes cholesterol, HDL.
Dave, how long is an initial consultation? All of that you do, it's got to be really encompassing.
2 hours.
Wow. Okay. Good.
2 hours with them. Yeah, 2 hours. They feel very, very comfortable by the time they leave.
Good.
And it gives me a chance to let them see my knowledge too, and that's very important. Well,
Very important.
The thing is that the people that come in here are always referrals. I don't. Look, I have never spent money on advertising.
Wow.
I just don't believe in it. I don't believe in it. I believe I am not going to, come in and get a free visit. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, no.
I don't have.
Well, you don't have to, which is a good thing. And the best barometer is results and people. And what you do is intimate anyhow. It's so
yeah, it's just very. Look, my studio is my home. That's
right.
my home. It's
I
my
understand.
home. And there's no more. I got myself and 2 trainers, and there's no more at maybe 6 or 7 people in the place. So it's never crowded. Everybody knows everybody else. Everybody feels comfortable. We joke around. We have fun.
It's like family. Question number 2. Okay. He also asked, Dr. Witten asked, what are the best markers in your opinion for cardiovascular fitness?
Okay. I would say years ago, I used to think, the more cardio you do, the more body fat you're going to lose and things like that, but I've definitely come away from that. Most of my people will do, I would say 2 to 3 days a week of warm up, 20 minutes, cool down, 1 day a week of intervals, get some good interval training in. But now it's changed for me because with the rower, this will be very interesting. I think that who asked that question is that I'm so gung-ho with what it's done for me that most of my clients now purchase these rowers. Okay.
Really?
Because probably 15 to 20 of them. I bought them for home. They're only $900, Mike. I mean, they're not expensive. Bad. They're very inexpensive, and they're a workhorse. You can't break them. So what I do is between the coach and myself, we've developed the plan for my clients now. So and the way it works is when that client gets interested in the rower, which 90% of them do because I tell them and they listen to me. Right. And they know that I'm third in the world, and I kind of know what I'm talking about. A little.
Are you third? You're third in the world right now?
Yeah, my age group. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we'll talk about that at the end. We'll finish with that. Go ahead.
Okay. So so what happens is now they do the fitness test that I do on the rower that I did, but we only take them to Borg scale 7. We don't do a max like I did. A Borg scale 7 is about 85% of their max.
Okay.
So as I said before, the person gets on the rower and they go at a certain pace for a minute, transition of 5 seconds, another pace. It's a stress test. Right. So, and I see how far they can go until they reach that number 7 on the Borg scale. I write down all the information. I email it to the coach, and the coach prescribes a month training for the client on the off days that they're not doing strength and resistance with me.
Wow.
So here's a guy or woman who's working out 2 or 3 days a week is now working out 6. And the way it works is when they come in, it's an education. It's not just training. You have to learn the metrics on the machine, and it becomes very interesting. They get their own whiteboards. They bring the whiteboards. They order the whiteboards, and they write their workouts down, and I show them everything. and make sure they don't go on their own till they're confident to go on their own. So for that next session, for about 4 or 5 sessions, I'm doing the training with them on the rower and teaching them everything. When they feel comfortable, then I send them home because they bought the rower and they do all the rowing on their own at home. On the Concept 2 logbook that I put them into is a Bluetooth to the monitor on the rower. The rower is Bluetooth into the phone, which goes to the Concept 2 logbook. They make me a training partner. I can see all their workouts at home and see if they're doing it and check what they're doing. I got them 6 days a week.
They must love that. They must love that you're overseeing.
I send them messages all the time. And then when they come in, we go.
Do you know this all-encompassing approach? Obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but I would think obviously, you kind of weed out the people who are, because they're always out there, you know, and they're denizens of the fitness media, the nefarious, untruthful fitness media. You weed out the people who are looking for the secret, right? Because it's a lot of work.
They know my people know there's no secret. And
but they know it's a lot of work, because don't you start hearing that old time, you know, number one thing is I don't have the time. I mean, you know.
Yeah, well, I know that, you know. But here's the thing about, I'm going to go back to the rower for a second. Here's the thing. When the coach writes up the workouts, the progression is so slow that, oh, Mike, did I lose you?
I can't see you.
You can hear me though.
I can hear you.
Wait a second. I'm going to come back. Can I come back?
Okay, it's okay.
All right, I'm coming back.
That's okay. I could ramble for a bit. There we go. Dave is taking care of some technical stuff. This is great. Still have some people hanging with us. Down in Boca. Denise is going down next week. She's leaving me here. So I didn't get an invite this time. It's okay. My day will come. But this is great stuff. I think I got Dave back.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, there you go, my man. Okay.
I'm so bad with this stuff. I'm sorry.
Okay, man. You're doing good. Doing real good.
Okay,
it's usually my fault, so don't worry.
No, this is great. I love this stuff. So what happens is the progression is so slow that they enjoy it. And by the time 3 or 4 months comes down the road, then they're really pushing themselves because the workouts are progressed. He'll send a month's workout. The people finish the month, and then he sends another month, and it keeps on going. And by the 3rd or 4th month, these people, they're doing the same training, almost the same training as me, but at different intensities, of course, you know?
Right. That's very powerful. Here's another one. Let's see. And this is a big one because, you know, it's funny. I don't see this as much as I did in maybe the 80s. Running, is it a good option in general for the over 50 crowd? Running. It's kind of a broad question, but I'm sure you have your ideas.
It's a tough one. You know why it's a tough one? I mean, they basically, look, I have 3 treadmills. They're not used as much as they used to be. And I'm just telling you, know, I don't really put them over there. Most of my people are older. The ones who run all their lives, the people who are running it older and who don't have any joint problems, that's fine. You know, I think if they love running and that's what they do and that's their thing and they don't get hurt. And, you know, I mean, we know a little bit of pounding builds bone, you know, so.
Dave, I'm going to go back to something you alluded to earlier, and I'm just going to give you a little example. You mentioned the amplification of pressure on the knee. It's multiple from running based upon your weight in this formula. And some people say, just like you just indicated, some people are fine for 20, 30 years. But I will say this, it's like the up row. I don't advise it personally. I prefer dumbbells versus a straight bar, because if you're using a straight bar, it causes something called impingement in the front, and you know you're familiar with this. And then the entire shoulder complex can become compromised. But I have guys saying, well, I've been doing it for 20 years and I don't have that problem. I go, well, you know what? give it 30 or 35 eventually. Hopefully, listen, despite what you hear in the media, you're probably going to live for a long time. You're probably going to go to, 85, 90, and you want to preserve what you can. So I just say, listen, if it's in any way orthopedically correct, or there's a better way to implement that stimulus to the target without, impugning the joint.
Well, what I try to do, Mike, if people want to use the treadmill, they're going to walk with an elevation mostly. I mean,
you increase the elevation.
Yeah, I mean, hey, listen, and most women want to work their glutes anyway. It's going to get their glute work more, so they're going to like it when you tell them, you want to get your glutes worked, you're going to walk with an elevation. It's much better for your glutes than it is, and less stress on your joints.
But Dave, you have people training with you. They're under your leadership, and they're there for the long run. David Bachman running too hard on me as I got older. It's like, Dave, patients would come in and say, hey, when I do this, it hurts. If it hurts, don't do it. Find something else. Simple as that. But Dave, you've got these folks, and they want to also run. And I would say you can run or you can be a runner. There's a difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Look, if somebody who's a true runner and been running all their lives, the chances of you changing them are not too good, because if they, look, everybody gets injuries in weightlifting. They get injuries. I get sometimes on the rower. I feel a little intercostal here and there. But I mean, yeah, you are going to get injuries, but a true runner, you're not going to change them because it's inbred in them. You got people running at the age of 15, 17, 20 years old, and they're still running. It's going to be very hard for you to transition them over unless they're hurt. It is, If somebody said to me, rowing's not good for you, you shouldn't do it. You think I'm going to listen to them? No. I'm not going to listen. I'm just not going to listen, but I think that with
Dave,
running,
let me stop you though. Let's say this. Let's say they have a clear goal, but running is not conducive to that goal. Would you then suggest to halt running if they're serious about that goal? And that could apply to anything, obviously. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, no. I agree with you there, because if look, most people I don't have too many people who are in their 50s or older running. They don't really want to do it anyway. My people, they'd rather be on something that's not going to be, a lot of them walk with elevation. Yeah. But they're not going to get on there and run. To teach somebody to run who's 50 or 60 years old is also difficult. There's a way to run, there's a way to run, and there's to run properly and not run properly,
Right.
And the ones who don't run properly are going to get hurt. And mostly a person who isn't experienced in running, you don't even want them running. No. I don't think so. When they're young, hey, listen, that's another thing I did. I ran a marathon. I did when I was 30 something years old, I trained for the Marine Corps Marathon. I did 7-minute miles.
Wow.
I did it. I wanted to do it, and I trained for it, and I did it. And you know something? It took me a long time to recover after that. They say after a marathon, it takes months to recover with the muscle damage.
I would imagine it beats up the body pretty badly in the training for it as well.
You look at an animal, they're made for it,
Yeah.
We're not really made for it. Maybe the cavemen were.
Hey Dave, do you address hormonal windows or anything like that? Hormonal balance? TRT, anything like that, if people are interested?
I don't recommend. I have a few males that they get the pellets and things like that. I don't recommend, because that's not my expertise.
Okay.
I say,
right.
If they want to do it, you talk to your physician. I am not going to. I have a kid coming in right now, and his father took him to the doctor, and you know, you have to be careful. You just have to be careful, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you just have to, you know, and you look, he's smart. He takes him to the doctor. He wants to see how he can make his son better, you know, because his son's a hockey player. And you just have to be careful with that, though. You know, to make somebody better doesn't mean you have to do anything that's enhancement-wise. There's natural enhancement. I mean, look, the best thing for making an athlete better is to train. We know that.
You know, Scotty Herman chimed in, one of your guys, I think. The good thing for Coach Dave, gets Joe in shape and Scotty ready for college hockey. You just mentioned hockey.
That's who it is. That's great. He's
yeah.
watching.
I figured that, you know. Well, you're consistent. That's good. Another question, the best ways to monitor progress in general, because people want to know, you know this, sometimes people, they want to see the scale go down, but let's say they're gaining muscle at the same time the scale doesn't move, and still they're feeling better, their clothes are looser, they feel tighter, stronger, all that stuff that's associated with losing fat and gaining muscle, yet that scale's not moving. Do they sometimes they're unable to get past that?
Well, I mean, I have the body metrics taking the body fat. They're fine.
Oh, they're okay.
Fine. Because, I mean, if they see the body fat going down, and it's a perfect example. I mean, this happened today. I had a client come in just today. He bought a rowing machine, and he goes, "I'm so glad I got it right before the pandemic, because you can't get them for now 10 weeks.
No.
You can't get them. Can't get the rowing machines.
You can't buy a dumbbell right now.
You can't buy anything. I know.
No.
I know. But what happened to him? He went from 188 to 188. But he gained 5 pounds of muscle, lost 5 pounds of fat. Today, I can take a picture of it and show it to you. And he goes, "I don't care. I look so much better, He's a strong kid too, but I mean, and that was just adding the rower. He gained muscle with the rower. You can gain muscle with this, because the reason is you do sprints. And that's one of the workouts. If you're doing sprints and you're working those type 2 muscle fibers, are you going to gain muscle? Of course. You're going to gain it. You're powering away on there, and you're doing, like, let's say 100 meter with a minute off, 100 meter, minute off, 100 meter, minute off. You're going to gain some muscle.
Well, speaking of gaining muscle, do you address or attend to, or at least notate that old sarcopenia that all the older people get hit with?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. They know all about that. But that's why. I mean, that's why the body composition is so good. All my people who are 70 and over, they all strength train. I don't
70.
care. Yeah, 70 and over.
70 years. Okay.
They're all strength training, all of them.
What's your oldest client, Dave?
86.
Wow.
Yeah, 86. And this guy pushes a sled.
Does he really?
He's out there pushing the sled. These guys, Scotty and Joe know all about, Herman know all about the sled.
Well, it's like, the way I look at it is, why not? Jack LaLanne said the reason a guy at 55 can't do what he did at 25 is somewhere along the line he stopped, because you want to get, serious about life. And then your body gains rust, and muscles have memory, mine have amnesia. That's what I say about that. But, you lose a lot when you stop. And when you start compounding degeneration and cell death, and the more it amasses, it's not that you can't turn it around, it's just that you get older, you have less time to turn it around. So I think it's very important to continue. You're blessed, like you've never stopped training, right? You've never stopped training.
Yeah, well, what's interesting, it's funny, Mike. My joke sometimes with people, I like to joke with people. A guy will come in, he's like, 65 years old, whatever he is, and he goes, I really want to gain some muscle and lose some body fat. What's the best thing to do? So I always tell him, start when you're 17.
Start when you're 17.
Guy laughs, Guy laughs at me. He goes, I can't do that. You still got to help me, And sometimes I get kind of like a little abrasive with people, because I had one guy come in, and I'm looking at him. He was like a time bomb. I mean, he was ready to explode, And
in what way? You mean his health?
Oh yeah, just horrendous, you know. And I took all his, but you know, it was really something that I took all his vitals and they weren't bad, you know. So, and I looked at him and I said, you know something, and I'm going to be very honest with you. And this guy name was Alan Cherry. I go, Alan, I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't know you that well. If you don't listen to me, you're going to die.
You have to say that.
I said, if you don't listen, you're going to die. And he looked at me and he said, what do I have to do?
Good.
295 to 198.
Wow. How long?
Probably
couple of years?
6 to 8 months.
Wow.
He was
resolute. Too many people. When I had my chiropractic practice, I had a weight loss clinic along with it, and a lot of this stuff would happen. And listen, one of my really good friends, he grew up an orphan. He became a really big businessman, very successful. He came into my office one day, and his tie was so tight, his head looked like it was going to pop, like a red cherry. I just said to him, I go, Tim, if you don't stop this, you're going to die. And I knew him well enough. And, you know, he just kind of, and I had a gym along with it, so he went to work out. I hadn't seen him for a month. And I thought it was kind of weird because for my business, I made bobbleheads of myself.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do. And I sent out all the patients, like five, you know, they probably use them as voodoo dolls and stuff, but who cares? But the funny thing is, I go to my office and I go, you know, I would have thought Tim would have, like, you know, cut its head off or pulled some trick or called me and made fun of me. I didn't hear from him. So I call him because I hadn't seen him in a month. And his wife, the minute I called, she goes, oh, you haven't heard the sad news. And sure enough, he died in his sleep from all this stuff, you know, and I wasn't being flipped with him. I was just like, you in case of emergency, you break that glass. When you see a person, it's your responsibility. None of this, you know, baby handling. You got to tell them, look, you're so heavy that your heart is going to take a day off. And when it does that, you ain't coming back.
You ain't coming back.
Do you find yourself doing that often with people or when you have to?
Well, no, not that often, because all the people that usually come in are referred because they see the people with the results they've gotten training with me. So they know, and, you know, look, I hate to say this, but people with money hang out with people with money.
Oh, of course.
You know, so, you know, my people, you know, for my people to spend $300-400 a week is not that much money to them. It's not that much money, you know. So it's, you know, it's the investment in their health, and when somebody comes in, they come be referred from somebody else. It's always like that, and then there's no they listen because it's not like they're coming from, oh, I saw this newspaper article and it's a 2-for-1 and I want to come in and work out. You know, it's somebody who's okay, I'm ready. I have to do this. Let's get started. Let's go.
Dave, how good do you feel about helping so many people's lives over the years? You know, you planted so many seeds of goodness all around you.
Yeah, I think John Defendis and John Booth feel the same way I do because they've been doing it for like me. But you know what's even nicer than that is when my clients meet my clients, you know, and they become friends.
Right.
Like, you know, and so many people are friends because of me.
And you don't, and I can almost probably guarantee that you never put money first. You never had to, right?
No. It comes.
It just comes anyhow.
It just
if
comes.
If you're putting out high quality with passion, and it's emblematic of you, it's reflective of what you do for yourself, you're going to kick up a lot of dust. One day you're going to look over your shoulder, the dust is going to settle, and you're going to have a big pile of cash. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You got to make money. You live in Boca, man. It's not like you're living in the hood or something, you know. You need money.
I love Boca, man. Boca's the best.
Do you? Well, listen, you know, my wife and I, we're eventually, our parents are all still alive and very well. So we're not leaving them up here. It's an Italian thing. But listen, I got to tell you, I'm 56 and not to bitch and moan, but listen, every winter it hurts more because, you know, when the barometric pressure changes, if your joints are compromised, there's pressure in the joint. And ordinarily, if it's healthy, it'll equilibrate with the pressure. But, you know, your joints and then the pressure, and then you're like, you know, you've always seen those old guys, oh, you know, it's my lumbago. it wears me down a little more every year. So yeah, I like Boca, Hyde Park, Sarasota, looking at all that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, hey, listen. When there's no cold, it's good for the joints, man. Right?
Dave, hold on 1 second.
Yeah.
The dogs are starting to act up a little.
That's okay. That's okay. I love dogs. Hey, no, as I said before, when you when you have heat and nice weather all the time, it's so much better on the joints.
Not only that, listen, I'm going to tell you, the number one area for doctors who commit suicide is Seattle and their dentists. Why? Most of the time it's cloudy, seasonal affective disorder. You always feel lousy. Everyone hates the dentist. So if you want to look at doctors who kill themselves, suicide, it's not a thing. And I'm being a little flippant, but not really. There's something to be said if it's always nice and sunny, uplifting.
Well, Florida is it's the Sunshine State. But the other thing is that, when I go outside my door, the Intercoastal on my studio is right here. I'm a quarter of a mile from the ocean. I can walk to the ocean. I mean, I'm downtown Boca is just absolutely, and the way it's taken off, the condos that are being built and what's going on down here is just crazy.
Dave, you're right on the water, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, my home is on the water. I got the Intercoastal and the water. My backyard's the Intercoastal, and I got the water across the street. Every time I go to work in the morning, and maybe 2 days a week, the sun's coming right over the ocean.
I'm going to ask you a semi-personal question, and I'm going to ask you the final question about your quest to become world champion, because we're going to close out soon.
Okay.
My semi-personal question is, do you follow Michael Dusa marriage math? And Michael Dusa marriage math, I'm 56. I got the right woman finally. If she would have me, let's say I get married at 60. Okay, and you're happy. I won't live much longer, so I kick the bucket. I'm still happy. It doesn't go down the tube. So my marriage turns out really well because there's not a lot of time. If I were to get married in my 30s, I would have never, all the businesses I ran, I wouldn't have made it because it's too hard, So I did it I left myself with very little time to screw up. You see what I'm saying? I'm being kind of funny, but that's just how it worked out.
You're funny. Well, I have a girlfriend.
I mean, I don't have to put you on the spot.
I'm just telling you, I have a girlfriend that's been with me for, I think, 7 years now. And she's, a little bit younger than me, which is kind of nice. So, but she's, we get along so well. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Does she understand your business and what you have to do?
There's not even a word. That's
the big key. That's the biggest key.
She's from Colombia, so she's, she knows, she's just, she's not. I hate to say this, but she's not like. Can I say this? American spoiled?
Maybe? Dave, the best thing about America, especially our America, is you can say whatever the hell you want. Anything you want, really. Anything. What were you going to say?
No, well, she's not spoiled. She's from Colombia, and she's been, the upbringing has been modest, and I met her here, and we just look, to go home and relax and watch Netflix and hang out with her is better than anything I want to do. That's it, And
Dave, listen, you're in the moment, you're smiling, successful, you're still pursuing goals, you're talking to me right now, so you're doing everything right. I mean, you're in the moment. You languish in the past, you're down, you worry about the future, anxiety. So what's the next, where are you taking the rowing? What's the ultimate goal with this? I mean, are you going to go to your 70 and then maybe do something else, or?
Well, I don't know. I mean, to find this, well, they have like when I went to the World Championships, I mean, there were people in their 90s competing. They got like a 90 to 95. It's crazy, and they got, it's all age groups. So, my goal right now is to do I want to get a 2,000 meter in under 7 minutes, which is very, very fast for kind of 50 up,
Wow.
The best in the world right now is probably the young guys in their 30s, maybe late. The best guys are the skull athletes. The guys
What kind of athletes?
Sculling athletes on for
Oh,
the
okay,
Olympics,
right.
skulls.
Yes.
What they do, they train on the concept to row it during the winter because they can't get on the water, right? So that's what they train on, the concept too, and that's originally what it was made for, and it came out in the 70s. So and now I think the best time is like a 5:30.
Wow.
Now think about that. I'm doing a 7:15, and the best time in the world is a 5:30.
Could you ever get to that? Could you ever achieve that?
No. Age has a lot to do with it.
So this is an instance where age, you can't beat time on this one.
I think in most sports you can't, because as you age and get into those 60s, and no matter how much you train, that muscle mass sooner or later is not going to be the you start losing it. I mean, that's what happens.
Right.
You know that, Mike. So so what I gotta, I have a window here because I'm new at this, and I've only been doing this for a year and a half, and there's guys that I'm beating now that have been doing it for 10 to 15 years,
Wow.
So I'm gonna see where this takes me, and keep on training to get better and beat my personal best, and not be concerned with other people. That's what it is. And my goal is to do under 7 minutes.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah, no, well, you always have to go after something, and business-wise, I'm always doing that. And I've been working out all my life, but I wasn't doing it too passionate enough. I did it to do it and to keep healthy, right?
Right.
Now doing this is the intensity. I mean, I can't even explain the training because, my girlfriend walks in on me because I'm doing it late at night, and she'll come into the studio, and I'm on the rower. And when I get off, she goes, "Why do you push yourself so hard?" That's what she says to me.
Can you even clearly answer that though, or do you sometimes question that?
I can answer that because you know why? Because I want to challenge myself more. That's what it is. I have it up here. I know I do. I've been doing this all my life.
You're like Rocky from Rocky Balboa and Paulie. No, really. Listen, I know some people think it's kind of corny, but I'm a big fan. And Paulie asked, he's 60 years old, and Paulie asked him he's going to go fight Antonio Tarver. I don't know if you ever saw Rocky Balboa. And Paulie asks him, why? Kind of what I just asked you, why? And he says, I think I still have a little bit more in the tank. And I appreciate that because I think you probably know this and subscribe to this. You don't want to be laying in bed in your twilight years and know that you didn't do everything you could. And then what you're beset with, the final things in your head are regret. You don't want to have regret because you didn't do something that you didn't fill that gap, so to speak. Does that sound maybe right for you?
I wouldn't change anything I've done.
Wow. Most people
the bad times, even the bad times, Mike, because the bad times make you strong.
Yes.
You go through those ups and downs in life like everybody else. I don't care who you are.
Oh,
and
yeah,
you're
absolutely.
Gonna have those times where you're down and you got to get back up. And Al Order was good for that, because he went through a lot of injuries. He goes, I would never give up. I just go. You get back up. You get back on the horse. You fall off the horse. You get back on the horse. That's life, man. And it's kind of funny because I told that to Scotty today. I said, Scotty, life it's up and down. And then this other girl that I trained is 18 years old, and she goes to me, I would have liked to have been around with the 60s. She came in today, like to be around with the 60s and the 70s when you were growing up. I go, why? She goes, because this pandemic and all this stuff. And I go, you know something? It happens through life.
There's always something. You know, I like when people will say things like this in these tough times. I go, what do you mean? They're always tough. Always tough. Just, it depends on who you're. Depends on where you are. You know. And I will end with this. Ultimately, all will be well, because it has to be. Because if you don't think all will be well, I suggest you stay in bed. And you and I are not in bed right now, so we both agree all will be well. If you're one of these soothsayers, oh, everything is a game, everything's gonna be changed. Well, you know what? Maybe just pack up and go live in a shack somewhere and give up, because that's what it sounds like to me.
You know. I mean, I really shouldn't say this, but
yes, you should.
When the whole thing with the pandemic started, and I said to myself, look, I'm not a regular gym. The people are going to be separated. I said, I'm not going to close, and I didn't.
Wow, good.
I was open the whole time.
Wow.
But what I did at first, I took them all outside because they were afraid to go inside. So I trained them all in the garage for about 3 weeks in the hot. They loved it, because I'm pretty intuitive in figuring, taking things outside and in and out, and give me a rock.
Well, you know what you do. You're a person who gets it done. You had to get it done somehow. So how do you get it done? There's always a way.
Always a way. I mean, training people. When you have the experience, you've been doing it for so long, like John Booz and John Defendis, you'll figure it out. Even when you just have their body, you'll figure it out.
Dave,
that's what we're all about.
I want to thank you, because we're probably done here with the time.
Yeah.
But this was fantastic, everybody. But do you want to leave us with any parting words or any thoughts, questions, considerations, anything?
No, I just really enjoyed this. I wish I could talked a little bit more about, I talked about John Booz. John Booz really helped me a lot. He put me in the direction to be the bodybuilder that I was. There's no doubt in my mind.
Dave, I'm serious. I can bring you guys, a couple of weeks, I can bring you guys both on at the same time. We have a discussion like that.
The only problem, we're not going to be able to talk. We'll be laughing so much with the story.
That's all right.
We have some, one thing about Al Order. Al Order, we used to have this little thin bar, for the bench presses, and the little bench about this thick, and we put like 530 pounds on the bar. So, and with the bench, the uprights were this close together, and the bench was this thick. And here's a guy, 280 pounds on the bench. John's on one side, I'm on the other side, and we're going to spot him. And we're looking at each other, and we're saying, we hope he gets this. And he did. He got it.
Wow.
530. He got it.
Those are great.
Everything Al did was sport oriented. Fast.
Really?
Fast. Nothing. I saw him curl 315 with the easy curl bar for sets of 6, but swinging the hell out of it.
300.
And one time he was doing side laterals with 100 pounds, hitting the ceiling because the ceiling was really low. And all we do, and John's wife yelling, "What the hell is going on down there?" We got so many stories.
I think it's great. I think it's great that you have those memories. I'm privileged and honored that you shared them with us, and everybody's very appreciative. I'll post this on your timeline. It'll go on YouTube. It'll go on a bunch of pages. You can use it. You can use it for your people. Spread it out to them. And I want to have you back. I hope you come back.
I would love to, and I'd love to come on with Booze and Defenders.
Hey, listen. If I come down to visit in Boca,
you're here. Hey, what do you mean if? What do you mean?
No, if? I will. But I don't want any Defenders like training protocols that I have to go through, man. I'm I don't know. I'm gonna
no. But you're definitely gonna. You know something? I would love to teach you about the row. I think you'd fall in love with it.
Hey, listen, I'll try anything. I need some. I know what I know really well, but for the most part, I don't know much at all. So it'll be a pleasure. But Dave, I want to thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks everybody. Man,
go give your honey a hug and tell her not to worry when you're doing 2 hours of rowing at 2 a.m. I'm glad there's people like you out there, because people are quick to say America's #1, and I agree. I just don't run into enough people who are building it into number one. So I think you're one of them. So I'm glad you're out there. Glad you
Thank
exist.
you, Mike.
And I want to thank you, Dave.
Hey, you know, here's one thing. You have to always enjoy what you do. That's what
Oh, there's
you
no
have to
doubt.
enjoy it. Because there's
If you
a lot
don't
of people
enjoy it,
out there who don't.
if you're in a really bad situation and it's wearing you down and it's terrible and you have your stomach hurts every night before you go, if you're able to take a hit somehow and get the hell out of there and be unemployed for a while, or be but it's a bridge to doing something that gives you joy and passion. I say pull that lever, because if you don't, life goes by like that, and then you're dead, and 1,000 years goes by quickly, and you're dust, and it's too late. So unless you believe in reincarnation to get another chance, that's it. But Dave, thanks again, man. I'll shoot you a note, okay?
Yeah, please. Hey,
right,
and you definitely come.
Oh no, we're coming down.
Come to Boca.
No, we come down like 3-4 times a year. I promise.
So much fun.
I promise. All right, Dave. Have a good night. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
I'm going to be here tomorrow with Dr. Mark Pacheco, and he's in California. Unlike Dave, he opened his gym despite what the government told him, and he's in all kinds of trouble, but he's a cool guy, and he doesn't care, and he keeps his gym open because health comes first. The hell with the virus. Good night, everybody. Thank you. All right, Dave. Thanks.
Take care.
All right, man.
Bye-bye.